and we will head over to the Storm, who I know last week my talk of it was the growing pains for the Storm and trying to deal with the ups and downs, because there were ups and downs. You could argue that there were ups in this one, yes, over this course of this past week, but the way that they're losing these games, I'm sure, is more frustrating than anything else for the Storm right now. So we look at the course of the past week. June 27th at the Minnesota Lynx was a 93-104 loss. Our play of the game guard Jewel Lloyd, 20 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. Tough one there. I mean, the Lynx haven't necessarily been a great team in the WNBA this year, but Nafisha Collier has been playing out of her mind. And the Storm have been failing to find consistency scoring the basketball in general over the course of this year. Whether that be the few players that have looked consistent not always being that, or just not getting enough from their bench and so and so. So they go into Minnesota and lose that one. Then both teams come back to Seattle to play a second game, and the Storm lose that one in overtime, 97-99, despite our player of the game, Jewel Lloyd, in this photo by Sage Zipeto, with a 41-point game, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 steal. It's a career high in points for Lloyd, 1 point away from that double-double there. Really tough. Jewel had a great overtime and a great fourth quarter. Just, up and down the board, really just not enough from the rest of the Seattle attack. And they lose that one to Minnesota. And, you don't want to see mistakes compound, but they start to compound, especially in this loss to the Liberty here, a 66-81 loss. The Storm start out poorly. The deficit goes as high as 22. The Storm make a little bit of a push in the third and fourth quarter, but it's ultimately not enough to get them within striking distance. They never get into single digits in that second half. Our player of the game, guard Jewel Lloyd, 27 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block. We get to our photo of the game here by Matthew Bermudez. Another one. I mentioned at the head of it when I talked about this Liberty game, the mistakes compounding, and they really did. A lot of the same issues that Seattle been dealing with: points in the paint, rebounding. I think they actually won one of those two or second chance points. And I was kind of surprised to see that. But they turned the ball over a ton, which is something that they were doing better upon in the last week. Seattle has been one of the top 3, I'd argue mainly more top 2 teams in all of the WNBA when it comes to fast break points, and the Liberty beat them to that. So it was not only the mistakes that the Storm had already been making, but they made other ones that were uncharacteristic of this team so far this year as well. So that was just overall a really tough loss to see that sort of, you could argue, regression from the Storm team. So we look at our player of the week. I mean, it's kind of obvious. Not to say that other players didn't have solid weeks. Ezi Magbegor has been playing excellent all year and had a double-double. I believe it was in that overtime loss to the Lynx. But, I mean, it's just Jewel Lloyd is Jewel Lloyd, and we all have to recognize the sort of incredible play that she's got. Over the past 3 games, she's averaging 29.3 points per game, 6.3 rebounds per game, 2 assists per game, 1 steal per game, and 1 block per game over those games against both Minnesota games and then against the Liberty. So, yeah, I mean, kind of speaks for itself. Kind of talks, I talked about the compounding of the mistakes. It's some things aren't being fixed when, we've got the failure of the issues on the boards. The turnovers had been good and are now not doing so good. um you're still looking for consistency scoring the basketball. You could argue in that game against the Liberty that they weren't distributing the basketball well enough. Even in those games, I believe it was a game in overtime against Minnesota, they weren't distributing the ball enough. The ball movement wasn't good enough. So it's those are now leaking into, hey, we're trying to fix these things, and then you look and there's another hole like just out of reach and you can't plug it. So it's just becoming too much to handle at this point, and I'm intrigued to see I was listening into the press conference against the Liberty there, and they talked about kind of, I guess the players talked about accountability within each other. So, um, with the Mariners segment, they talked about a players only meeting. You wonder, the coaches can only do so much. If a lesson isn't being digested and then put into action by a player, it doesn't really matter, right? So, it'll be very interesting to see the after a loss like this Liberty game, after a stretch like this, and with some of the news that's got coming up here, um, what sort of change we'll see from the Storm, and how immediate that might be put into action, or maybe it just isn't. Um, hmm, maybe it isn't something that makes an effect. Maybe they're stuck in a loop here. So it'll be it'll be very intriguing to me. I'm sorry. I don't want to get that all. I wanted to make sure that came across correct. So we move over here to some news. Center Ezi Magbegor was named as an All-Star reserve for this year's All-Star roster. She'll join Jewel Lloyd in heading to that, excuse me, in Las Vegas here from July 14th through 15th. It's her first All-Star appearance. She's one of 12 reserves for the WNBA All-Star game in Las Vegas, as voted by league coaches and announced on by the league. She's having a career year, which is great to see after the sort of improvement and progress that we saw from Ezi last year. 15.1 points per game, 8.6 rebounds per game, 2 blocks, 1.9 assists, and 1.4 steals per game while shooting 50.9% from the field. She's she scored in double figures in 13 of 15 games this season. Wow, including, yeah, and we've talked about Ezi over the course of the year. She's easily been Seattle's second scoring option. Um, where did I lose it? Okay. Including each of the last seven, recording 6 double doubles and shooting 50% or better from the field in 10 games. Magbegor had 16 points and 16 rebounds in her last outing, a career high in rebounds, and becoming just the fourth Storm player. I believe this was, this was after the overtime loss to the Lynx, I believe. To post those numbers are better in a double-double. She scored 20 points on a Tuesday in Minnesota, her third game with 20-plus points already this season after collecting 4 total over the last 3 seasons combined. So Ezi more than deserved for that All-Star nod. And then this big one that had been speculated but not officially confirmed. The Storm have brought back forward Gabby Williams. Williams is back after all that stuff in the beginning of the year where it's like, will she, won't she? Why do we care? Um, so that was announced officially this morning. Actually, the Storm announced that 2022 WNBA All Defensive Second Team pick Gabby Williams has re-signed with the team on a rest of the season contract. Per team policy, terms of the deal were not discussed. She will join the team on the upcoming East Coast road trip and wear her number 5, as you can see in the photo. She made a big splash in 2022, flashing a lot of potential, a lot of athletic potential. Tried to gain footing on her offensive potential to something that was growing with her over the course of the year. And we already knew about the defense, but it was the offensive potential that we wanted to see. She started all 36 games for the Storm in 2022, averaging 7.5 points, 5 rebounds, 3.1 assists, and 1.5 steal per game, while connecting on a career best 44% from the field. So you can kind of get a bit of it there for Gabby. Those 7.5 points isn't the biggest, but the rebounds as well is a big thing. She finished as one of the best lockdown defenders in the league, ranked 8th in steals, 11th in defensive win shares, and 13th in defensive rating. She also finished 5th among qualifiers in steal percentage at 2.6%, with the team's defensive rating dropping nearly 2 points per 100 possessions when not on the court, the second largest change on the Storm. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, yeah, that's mainly on Gabby. But no, I mean, I talk about it with the offensive potential. Last year with the Storm, they did need that. They needed a third scorer. There was Stewie, there was Jewel, and it's like, okay, who's the third player going to be? At times it was Tina Charles. At times Ezi Magbegor was able to help out with that, but Gabby really showed some great potential here and there, in doing so, and being able to be that player who did that for Seattle. So it was very intriguing to wonder if this was going to become reality at some point this season or maybe next season. To see this now is kind of interesting to me. Um, but the rebounds and the defensive effort are going to be big things that Williams will be able to help the Storm out with in the immediate time. I don't think, obviously, you are looking for that. You are looking for um, more scoring and more consistent scoring. I'm not saying that Gabby just being on the team will automatically help that. It probably should, but seeing her develop that will be big. But in the immediate, like in the now is how I want to put it. Williams will be able to help defensively and on the boards in a big way. So that's fun, and it's great to have Gabby back. So the Storm sit at a 4-12 record on the season. They are 11th in the league, fifth in the Western Conference. Looking ahead, their next game is on July 6th at the Connecticut Sun at 4 o'clock Pacific time. That will be broadcast on Amazon Prime Video and Fox 13. And then a rematch with the New York Liberty, this time in New York for the first time, with an 11 o'clock start on July 8th. That game will be on ESPN. So big national TV broadcast, as Gabby Williams will be getting back into it there, playing against Connecticut and New York. It's safe to say that Gabby can really help out with that. I'm excited to see her. I'm interested to see if she's jumped immediately into the starting lineup, if she starts out on the bench. It's just great to have Gabby back. So we move over here